What am I to do?
Welcome to RazorBranding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, welcome to RazorBranding Podcast. Thanks so much for joining today. I am super excited to have with me a fellow Raging Cajun, University of Louisiana alum, Greg Salazar. And let me tell you, he has a story that is so cool about what he's been doing online. It's not even a pandemic pivot as much as it is just an awesome business. And so I can't wait to talk to Greg, and I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I do. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. So I know that we talked a little bit about this before the show, but if you don't mind, roll us all the way back to you're at UL, University of Louisiana at Lafayette, go Cajuns, and you're getting into YouTube and videos. It was mostly just computer repair stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, at the very beginning of the channel, actually, it really had nothing to do with computers per se. It was more just general science topics, things that interested me. I never thought it would take off. Was getting 10, 12 views a video, it was nothing crazy. And then I built my first computer, like full-fledged, desktop to help with editing, because that was the part that was taking a very long time with the, cheap computer that I had, cheap laptop. And I decided to film that process because I figured, wow, this is science, this is technology, it fits. And there's just more content to make. So I filmed that. That video did way better than any of the other stuff I had done before that. And I guess I was just curious at that point. It didn't click where I was like, oh, you know what? I can make a living if I just keep doing it. That part never occurred to me in the beginning, but I just wanted to see how far the rabbit hole went. And I kept making content about computer stuff, and it kind of stuck.
And so I can imagine, you're building a computer, which is kind of a slow, arduous process, but you filmed it, you edited it, you made it interesting, and you went from 8, 10, 12 people watching to how many on that first video where you realized, oh, wait, there's a lot of people paying attention to this?
Yeah, I would say probably when it broke 1,000, and it broke 1,000 views pretty fast. I mean, it wasn't like something that just it had been up there for a while, and then all of a sudden the YouTube algorithm decided, hey, this looks really good. We'll promote this for whatever reason. It was pretty immediate, and I noticed there was quite a large demand there for that kind of consumable content and informative content, and so I started kind of curtailing it towards that, where I could teach people what I had just learned and what I was continuing to learn while filming those kinds of videos. And so the first 1,000 views, I think that was when I realized this really stands out. It's hard to ignore.
Right. And so people are paying attention to it. Now, when I went to your channel prepping for this, I saw a lot of those videos that had way more than just 1,000 views. What's your highest at this point?
I would say it's pretty close to 2 million. It might be over. I haven't checked.
I think you have recently a couple over 2 million.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't aware they crossed that point. I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, like 2 million, I mean, there's channels that pull 2 million views a video. I was never a channel that just like instantly hit, fame status. I still don't think I'm anywhere close to that, to be frank. But to be able to, consistently pull 50,000, 100,000 views, especially now with some of our newer, more popular playlists. I mean, it's very humbling. And when you really put into perspective how many people that actually is, that's all the motivation I need to keep it going.
And I think it's cool, though, when you realize you're not out there lip syncing a song or doing a dance. You're providing a service. I mean, people understanding how to better build, protect, care for, utilize their computers. That's a good thing. And so I think that's kind of awesome.
It's super cool to share that kind of enthusiasm with such a large audience. I talk to my friends, even family members, about the things that I do, and to most of them, it's just not very interesting. But then, to post just a random computer video online, and maybe I'll point some things out. Maybe it's a fully informative video, or maybe it's just for fun. Maybe it's satirical. But then to share that enthusiasm with so many other people in the comment sections and the like, it's very rewarding in that sense. And it's one of the reasons why I've kept it going for so long.
So I have this visual now of you walking into a cocktail party and start talking about computers, and people flock to the other side of the room. But on YouTube, everybody flocks to you. I mean, what a dichotomy there.
Yep. I have to be very, not necessarily careful about where I talk about tech. I mean, I do it to my wife all the time. I'll tell her, hey, babe, you won't you'll be blown away by this or this, what I just did here. Check this out. And she just does not care at all. I mean, she's a gamer, but she doesn't really care about the technology side of it. And look, to each his or her own. I get it, but sometimes I feel the need to want to share things face to face instead of just over the screen. And yeah, I mean, she does really well. Her patience is astronomical.
So she does, in fact, not think it is a cool thing when you tell her, "Hey, check out this cool thing." She's like, "Nope."
Maybe in the beginning, I mean, I might have maybe kind of sort of used that to kind of woo her in the beginning, but no, she got very, very tired of all that nerd talk, so to speak, very quickly.
Now, Greg, I've not met your wife, so I can't really speak for her, but speaking for all of the women that I do know, that is not woo language. Nerd talk is not how
Wait,
we are.
You tell me this now? I know. Sorry.
Hey, I got her. Man, you hooked her. So you're in. You don't even have to worry about it.
All right, true.
But typically, we are not wooed. So just letting you know.
Well, I will have to let my son know that. Unfortunate as it sounds, you cannot use your computer knowledge to woo a woman. That
No.
is. Now, if you can, there might be a few women out there who are really into that kind of thing, and there certainly are.
Sure.
You find that one who is, she might
That's
be
a
a keeper.
special lady indeed.
Oh,
Lock her
yes.
down.
Right.
So you've got a channel. You're creating videos on a semi-regular basis. At what point did you realize, oh wait, YouTube is going to actually give me money for all this traffic?
Yeah. So the monetization program back then was a little less strict. I think now, because the platform is so saturated, I mean, anybody can make videos about anything and probably pull okay viewership. But it's about consistent viewership, right? And creating a space that's habitable for the ads that YouTube injects, because that's how YouTube makes money. I enabled monetization after I had around 500, maybe 1,000 subs off the top of my head. And in the very beginning, I mean, it's like, pennies. It's nothing. And it was like that for quite a while. And then you get that one video that just clicks and 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 views. You can make decent money from that. I think the first decent paycheck, relatively speaking, that I got from Google was a few $100s. And at that point, I think I realized, I'm like, okay, if I can continue this and scale this in a quick enough fashion that still feels organic, right, then I could actually rely on this as stable income. And whether it just remains, passive, so to speak, in the sense that it's not like my full-time job, or maybe I do take it on as my full-time job. At that point, I still hadn't truly decided, but I knew that it could still become a viable and reliable source of income. That was probably a year into it. I'd have to go back and look at the analytics, but I think, just going into my senior year of college, when I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I could do this full time and kind of forego my potential career with the degree I was pursuing.
Right. And so is it your full-time job, or do you still just do it on the side?
It is one of, it used to be my primary source of income. So right when I graduated, I didn't even send out, I didn't pursue job offers. I didn't send my resume out to anyone in the industry.
I thought you were going to say you didn't send grad announcements because you were making so much. You didn't need cash from your friends and family.
It would have been nice. Now, at that point, it was, let's just say, what a typical engineer would expect to make coming out of college, startup in whatever field they're pursuing. I mean, it was kind of in line with that by that point on YouTube and some of the external brand deals we had made.
That's got a comma. Anytime
yeah.
you get a check with a comma, that's good.
Exactly. and I was, at that point, like, whatever. If it doesn't do well, at least I have an engineering degree. I mean, something that I think you could pretty much take anywhere. I have that to fall back on, so to speak, although I never would have looked at an engineering degree like that before. It just kind of, the timing worked out. But the income was enough at that point to where I knew I didn't want to do what I thought I was going to do after college. So, and
it was enough to woo your wife. So, you're good.
Yep, it was. And I tell you what, man, the way that I met her was just crazy. In Taiwan, I was there for a conference, and she worked with one of the companies that brought us there. And this was literally weeks after I graduated when I had decided I was going to do it full time. If I hadn't decided I was going to do that full time, I probably wouldn't have had time to make the trip to Taiwan, and I would have never met her. So it's crazy how things just align the way they did.
They really do work out like they're supposed to, huh?
It's nuts. I mean, looking back, like the odds of that are just insane.
Right.
It's not like I was looking for a wife in Taiwan. I just got out of college. I was a free man, so to speak, and here I am, meet my future wife in literally a week or two after experiencing some degree of freedom.
No more,
So,
no more freedom, no more.
Oh boy.
So when you think about all of the videos that you've created, have you started to figure out some sort of system or commonalities where these types of videos are going to perform better than those, or does it still feel kind of random and haphazard?
I would like to say I have it all figured out. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there are a few that do. I think in our space it's difficult. I mean, the tech market is very ebb and flow. Right now, there's a huge graphics card supply shortage, demand spike, just on kind of everything going on right now. And that's discouraged a lot of builders. And so anytime anyone releases a graphics card review or a PC build video that has an expensive graphics card in it that's very difficult to obtain for a reasonable price, I mean, that discourages a lot of people. It frankly upsets a lot of people. And I caught onto that very quickly, and I tried to kind of curtail my content toward things that didn't necessarily have to do with expensive unobtainium, so to speak. And so there are certain playlists that I think are pretty consistent. I know that if I upload a PC cleaning video, it's probably going to do around 100,000 views, maybe more than that, depending on the kind of specifics of that video. We just started a fix or flop playlist where we fix viewer system, or at least try to, which is another way to kind of sustain older builds because people can't really upgrade it right now because either the parts aren't available or again they're way too expensive. So that's kind of how I shifted my content recently. But before that, it could have been anything. Sometimes the simplest videos to make do the best. And it drives me crazy because if I had known that to begin with, I maybe would have put a little more effort into the production quality of that video, because now so many more eyes are going to see that one. And the one that's, took 10 days to produce is barely pulling 10, 15,000 views. And look, I'm grateful for those 10 or 15,000, but at the end of the day, I can't sustain a channel on 10,000 views. I mean, not at the scale that I'm at. And with the other things that I'm trying to do on the side, it just wouldn't work. So yeah, it's what we talked about a bit off camera. It's when you're feeling this strain of whatever you're doing, if something's not working, you have to adapt. If you don't adapt, you'll be buried. You'll fall behind very quickly. Everything moves so quickly in this industry.
Right. When you think about all of the shifts and changes that you've seen go for the past few years, did you notice any substantial that came out of the pandemic? I mean, were more people watching because they were at home, not really working? Did you find that you lost attention, gained attention? How was last year for you?
It was interesting. At first, definitely noticed. At first, there was, I don't want to say a viewership drop per se. If anything, it probably went up just a bit. But the real difference was in the advertising rates. I noticed a reduction in that on YouTube side in the beginning. And I'd have to go back and look at my numbers specifically, but there was probably a small pullback from external advertisers also, just brands that come to me and want to plant their own organic ads into our videos. There was probably some pullback there too. But it rebounded, I would say, midway through the year, maybe toward the end of 2020. The YouTube ad rates started picking back up again. And the brands now, brand deals, external brand deals especially, I mean, you can tell these companies have a lot of money in their pockets. They're spending. They want that, that they're trying to fulfill that advertising budget. And so that's been good for us. But yeah, it was definitely noticeable in the beginning, probably not to the extent that, other businesses and other sectors experienced, the hard hits. And I know there were plenty of businesses that suffered immensely especially in the beginning. Right. But we were fortunate enough to be in an industry that really wasn't as, anywhere near as affected, I would say, as many of them.
Do you have a lot of outside companies that try to do sponsorship deals with you or external deals with you? Yes.
So I made it a personal goal of mine a couple of years ago. By the beginning of 2020, I wanted to have an external ad in every video. And that was something that I was a bit hesitant about at first. Many other channels bigger than me were already doing this. But it was going to be a little more difficult for a channel my size at the time, maybe 300,000 subs, 400,000 subs, to not only consistently place those external ads and videos, which, by the way, those ads per year, I make more from those ads than I do from YouTube income per year. From AdSense. So it was very crucial that I did that when I did it, because that was a game changer from an income perspective. And that happened kind of right before, because you set up these deals, Q4, Q3 of the previous year. But all of that was set up right before the pandemic kind of sprung about. So pretty crazy timing on my part. I had no idea this was going to happen. But yeah, it's been, I mean, a lot of companies, I would say, that we've worked with in total, several dozen.
That's awesome.
I'm very fortunate to have been able to work with them.
Do YouTube sensations get an agent? Do the companies just approach you directly? How does that work where the contact is made?
Yeah, it depends. So some companies choose to do it in-house, and you can tell, they have if it's whatever, it could be, let's just use Apple, for example. If Apple reached out, which they never would, I don't really do Apple content, but if they did, and you knew it was in-house by, the fact that they have like a jeff@apple.com or whatever email handle, right? It's pretty obvious there. And then it's also very obvious when a third-party kind of marketing agency reaches out instead. They always have all of their own, personal company information at the base of the email, and then their email address has a very different domain than the company they're representing. It's always much easier in my experience to work directly with the company. Obviously, there's no middleman, so there's the transfer of information is much faster, and they can convey what they want much easier because they're talking to the person that's going to be creating whatever content they want. But it's just how the industry is. I get it. And to be frank, sometimes it's easier to work with, at least from a monetary perspective, with the middlemen agencies, because they can sometimes pull a bit more budget toward you for whatever project the sponsoring company has in mind. Yeah, kind of a give and take there, but I'm ultimately content with either one.
One of my daughters, who's now actually a student at UL, when she was much younger, I'm going to say maybe 4th or 5th grade, started a YouTube channel with one of her best friends, and they wanted to make sure that their fans could get in touch with them. So they wrote down their home addresses on a piece of paper and headed up to the camera and said, you can send us fan mail here. Is that the approach that you take in dealing with your fans, or do you have a more sophisticated approach to it?
Oh boy. Yeah, that, I'm sorry, that was pretty good.
No, it was awesome. We had to shut it down immediately as our home address was on YouTube. Luckily, the 2 fans were the 2 mothers involved, and we immediately shut it down.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, because if it was anyone else other than that, I mean, you know how things last on the internet.
Yes, I do know how things go. So, so
and it has. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
So your approach is more sophisticated? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, okay. It has to be. I mean, I had. I wanted to use social media, obviously my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook handles. I wanted those to be reliable, consistent ways for viewers to contact us about anything. Whenever they wanted to, like, we used to review crazy computer ads that had a bunch of misleading stuff in them, or maybe just like they were super overpriced. People love using Facebook and Twitter to send us those crazy links. So very quick, again, transfer of information. It's very efficient. So definitely took advantage of social media there. I don't have like a lot of people will use like a PO box or something like with UPS or just the post office, and they'll get fan mail sent there. I've never really done that sort of thing. If I had anybody send anything,
I can give you that piece of paper with our home address on it if you need a destination for your mail. So you mentioned reviewing ads. I noticed in one of your videos, you had a little bit of a legal situation with a computer seller. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah. So he posted a link, very derogatory. I mean, you can see it's still on our channel now, but it wasn't professionally handled. It wasn't typed up professionally. And there was an address at the top of the ad. Well, the address linked to a business. And when that video of us kind of reviewing the ad, talking about how ridiculous it was that all these things are being worded this way, this is what not to do. When that video went up, we were threatened with cease and desist letters, this and that, from the author of the ad. Well, that author of the ad was the owner of the company whose address was included in that listing. And I mean, besides the fact that it could have been any address, the fact that it was voluntary included in a public listing, I mean, that's one thing. But then to threaten us in every which way, I threatened to have a court-ordered injunction to take down my YouTube channel and a bunch of just kind of off-the-wall stuff that I knew, there were never going to be any grounds for. When all that stuff was thrown our way, I kind of just became adamant about leaving it up. And that's still what I tell people to this day. I mean, look, if he was a cool guy, came to me, said, look, dude, I was having a bad day. For one, I shouldn't have put my address there, especially with the kinds of things that I wrote in that listing. But I was just off. I apologize. If you could take the video down, I'd appreciate it. I'm getting a lot of hate, and I really don't want to tarnish my business because of this one bad day I had. That's one thing. But sure. to immediately, resort to threatening with legal action, and that's something totally, especially when you really have no basis, no grounds for it. Anyway, the judge ended up completely throwing it out. We filed a motion to dismiss. He ended up suing me personally and the business both for I think it was $6,000 in total, which is the highest you can sue somebody for in small claims court. Well, in the state of Indiana, you have to have legal representation for a business that's sued for over X amount of dollars. So I ended up having to hire attorneys to show up to the court date for the hearing about the motion to dismiss, which was a pretty penny. But yeah, it was thrown out. We have the judge's whatever he releases when he is his order or ruling,
his judgment.
Exactly, his judgment. Yeah, and so that's pretty cool. I thought about framing it, just hanging it up on the wall. It's my first and hopefully my only legal experience in that sense. But to this day, I've heard that he's still very, very bitter and still trying to figure out how to get us back.
To be clear, he put his own address on his ad. All you did was talk about it. So it wasn't like you outed the guy's address. He had already listed it. Exactly.
It was already there. And I don't even know if I actually even drew attention to the fact that an address was up there. I don't even think I called attention to it. That wasn't my goal. My goal, if I wanted people to go and harass them online, call them names, whatever, leave them fake reviews, I would have said that. I would have just said it, But it's crazy. It's still crazy thinking about how far that thing went, how far it had to go. I mean, there were threats against my life made by that owner. I mean, it got so bad. I mean, I ended up calling the police here saying, hey, this guy, I mean, I don't know if you'd call him a flight risk or what, but when he's saying the things he's saying, I feel like he's going to show up at my door one day and actually do what he said he's going to do in this message. So that was pretty scary. Hopefully never have to deal with something like that again. But
does it worry you being that much out in the public that is going to attract other crazies like this? Yeah,
that was probably the first wake-up call. I mean, I always thought I was too small to really kind of be in the spotlight for that kind of negativity. Obviously, there are things I could probably do to bring on that negativity. I hope I never do. I didn't think that this kind of listing would obviously do that. But you just never know online. It's always better to play it safe. Especially when you have a family, when you have a wife, and you have kids, there's no room for error. You've got to protect them above all.
Absolutely. I mean, and no YouTube check is worth that kind of drama. No. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That's what I mean. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. If I pick up on anything like that, it's just I don't want to feel that way again. It was just the anxiety that came about from not just my own anxiety, but the anxiety I'm sure my wife felt from all of it. It's just not worth it.
I mean, you're just a dude building computers on camera. That should not merit this kind of attention.
Oh, it was very fun trying to explain it, not only to my lawyers, but also to the judge, to the magistrate in that particular case, trying to explain to them what I do and what specific action brought about this kind of frivolous lawsuit. I was just looking at an ad created by an individual in your state and said it's a horrible listing and basically this person's being a prick. This isn't how you're supposed to do it. And and now I'm being sued for it. So that's there's no there's no ground you can stand on. I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here. So here's what's happening, I guess.
Thank goodness for the First Amendment.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So I I was like, and I know my lawyers obviously know way more than I do about the law, but I'm telling them, like, this is totally protected free speech. I said nothing wrong. There's nothing I said that was, whatever. And they're like, yeah, dude, we got it. We
Take
don't
it
even
to the
need
Supreme Court.
Yeah, right. I was like, I know they're thinking, like, we don't even need to go that far. Like, he can't even. I mean, there's no grounds at all for a lawsuit of any kind.
Right.
But we don't even need to go as far as First Amendment rights because it's already frivolous to begin with. So,
Right.
So
let's take it back a few years. What drew you to the University of Louisiana? Like, how did you end up at UL and in Lafayette?
So I'd like to. I don't know. I'm frugal.
Okay.
My dad's frugal, and we're trying to maximize value.
Sure.
Basically, the University of Louisiana is very affordable, and it's not the kind of affordable that kind of passes off as that like cheap kind of vibe, that's not what I wanted.
Right.
I wanted good bang for the buck, but also I wanted to have like the typical college experience. I had that at my previous university. I was at Troy University for a year.
Oh, so you're a Sunbelt man.
Yes, yeah, I know. One Sunbelt to another, which is kind of a coincidence. But I mean, look, the Sunbelt schools, I mean, in general, they all have either very good scholarship programs or tuition, room and board, things like that, are relatively affordable. College is expensive across the board, but Sunbelt schools were much more attainable than, say, paying full out of pocket for Auburn University or FSU or wherever. Plenty of schools were closer to me.
Troy, and you thought, oh wait, I want to go to a school whose football team and baseball team wins more often. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing you say.
To be fair, when I first got there, if I recall, our football team wasn't all that great. Of course, like the year that I left, or like I think it was 2018, it might have been 2019. Just insane. Like they were undefeated. I think they might have lost one
10
game.
and 1. 10 and
10
1.
and 1. I mean, that's for all intents. Like that's insane. I really wish I had been there.
3 points. So yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that would have been awesome. I went to a few games when I was there, and the games that are close are the ULM games and the smaller schools, but the big schools, I mean, those are usually just stat pumpers. Let's be frank.
Paydays.
But
we get paid to lose.
Right. But then this one year, I can't remember again which year it was, but they going 10 and 1. I mean, I'm sure that just had to just completely shock everyone on both sides.
It was awesome.
It must have been so cool. I really wish I had been.
We are very grateful for Coach Billy Napier and all of the what he brings to our university.
That was so cool to hear. I love watching their games. I was never really big on anytime UL was shown on TV. I was like, okay, it's cool. That's my school. They're playing home. That's cool. It's hey, I stood there. But to actually see them, I mean, take it to teams 2-3 times their size with enormous budgets.
Right.
That was satisfying.
Yeah, we enjoy it every day. Speaking of, so September 4th, if you plan a road trip to Austin, you should be able to watch the University of Louisiana beat the University of Texas in Austin.
Oh,
torn down.
All right.
I'm just saying, you can stand on our sidelines. Matthew McConaughey will be on their sidelines. It's the battle of the YouTube sensations.
That's where he lives, right? He lives in the Austin, Texas area. Anytime there's a big sporting event, I always see him there.
Yes. He's a professor at UT.
No way.
Yes.
I did not know that.
For real. He teaches a film class.
Wow.
Yeah, I took our youngest on a tour there last year, and in the bookstore, they had a McConaughey tree, and it was a Christmas tree with pictures of Matthew McConaughey from all of his different film roles. It was awesome. Maybe the UL bookstore can make a tree for Greg Salazar.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm
going to start a petition. I'll see if I can make it happen.
No, you know what I found out? I found out that there was a student that went a bit off topic here. I'll be quick. It was he threw a football to himself. Basically, he threw it like 40 yards or something. Really high, really far. And then he ran and he caught the ball like at the same throw. So you have to be quick. You have to have a really good arm, obviously. And I found out that he ended up going to UL for a few, I think it was either a couple semesters or a couple years.
Love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to see, other people who, I don't want to say online sensation. I'm not trying to teach my own horn, but people who, can pull a fairly large following, go to the same school I went to. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and that's how I feel about knowing you went to my school. I love that. I was a few years ahead of you, but yes.
I was such a looking back, I was such a boring college kid. I mean, I was in the books because I had to be. My parents are very strict with grades, and I'm glad they were, because I probably wouldn't have been if I didn't have that push from them. But at the same time, while I was doing the school stuff, I was also doing YouTube, and that was pretty much it. I didn't go out. I wasn't the partying type. I didn't have many friends. I was probably half my fault, and well, I guess the other half would be my fault too. But it was never a big. The social game in college is always hyped up, but it was never really a priority for me. I was more focused on, all right, this is time to set up for whatever's next, and whatever's next has to be big, because I got big plans. And I just kept telling myself that. That was what kept me focused while I was there.
Did you live on campus or in town?
I did. I lived on campus. I lived in the Legacy apartments.
Nice.
Yes,
Those are
right
very
there,
nice.
right there by, was it Girard Park?
Girard Park, that's right.
Yes, I love living. I mean, I was in an apartment that was right across the street from the park, so I could, and it was right there at the entrance too, so I could just literally walk down the stairs. We were on the 3rd floor, because I hate hearing people stepping around above me, and so we had to wait a year to get into the top floor. But when we got there, you walk down 2 flights of stairs and cross the street, and boom, you're right there in the park. There's a little jungle gym, nice little calisthenic workout area right there. So I tried to stay somewhat in shape, and that's such a great place to.
Well, you have the little pond right there with the ducks
Yes.
and a little gazebo.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. I filmed a few videos there. Yeah, a
Excellent.
few camera test videos and iPhone videos, things like that. That was really fun.
That is excellent. Well, I love our school, and I'm glad that you represent it so well. That is awesome.
Thank you. No, I'm glad I went there. I love the atmosphere is like the best part for me. I mean, it's such just a very homely, kind of inviting, warm atmosphere. I love the climate. I love everything about it.
The climate?
I do.
Greg, it is currently hot and humid.
Okay, maybe not that part, but I love the rain. I love that it rains all the time. I
Sure.
just, that's such, when you live kind of in the swamp or near the swamp, that's a byproduct of it usually. And I just love those days. I remember times we were stuck between classes. We have like 5 minutes to get across the entire campus by foot, and it's just pouring. Like, it looks like just buckets of water being dumped from the sky. And I'd look at my brother, because he was in the same program I was, pretty much the same time, and we'd have to get to point B, and I look at him, I'm like, all right, we're gonna dead sprint this straight, because you don't have time to keep under the pavilion or the little pathways with the coverings. It's just, there's no time. You're either late and you look like a fool, or you show up on time but you're drenched in water. And we chose the latter for whatever reason. And yeah, those were fun. Good times.
Well, and when it rains hard and a lot.
Yes, it's a relentless.
It's not a sprinkle. It literally is like buckets.
I don't think it ever sprinkled there. It's either pouring or it's not. It's on or off.
Well, and there's all those fun memes about UL, the level of rain. So there's the wear boots level. There's the you're going to get drenched, but you still have to go to class level.
Yep.
There's the get a kayak or a pirogue because we're not canceling. And then there's, category 5. We still expect you to attend.
Yeah, that's
we
still like borderline.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not sure if we're canceling class or not. I learned that very quickly. I was like, oh, dang. I was like, there's no way we can go to class right now. You know what? Nope. No email, nothing. We're expected to show up. The thing is, too, you'd think an umbrella would work. I mean, you think that would get you where you need to go unscathed. But when the rain's blowing sideways at 40 miles an hour, or if it's coming down as hard as it can, your umbrella's collapsing in on itself due to the weight of the water above you. It's
white shrimp boots and waders and a jacket and a hood, and you're still going to be soaking wet.
No, you see, I did the opposite. I would just wear like swim trunks and a tank top. I just accepted the inevitable, right? So I showed up. I looked like it just came from the beach, but you know what? Let them think what they want. At least I'm in class on time and I can start taking notes right away.
You engineers are smarter than the rest of us.
We're just efficient. That's all. We're just trying to think as efficiently as possible, as minimal effort as possible.
My second kid, the oldest girl, she's actually in the engineering program at UL in chemical engineering. She's a chemie, as I think y'all call them.
I admire the chemies. They are a different breed there. That's golly. I love chemistry. I wish I was better at it than I was, but that was so fun. I loved it.
I'm impressed at how hard she works. It is very tough. My communications, marketing, and business classes were not nearly as hard as what she's doing.
Right. Yeah, that was a thing too. I mean, Troy was when I was at Troy, I was just a business major. They didn't have engineering schools there, and I think I was doing economics. Well, I mean, sure. I mean, if I had to compare them, I would think I would say, engineering was definitely they required more effort. but I think looking back on it, probably enjoyed business classes more. It was just so much. I mean, it's difficult sometimes to visualize concepts in engineering, any kind of math, physics. If you can draw a picture explaining something, I'll get it 9 times out of 10. But if you're just telling me that a theorem is the way it is and we just have to kind of gel with it, that's a lot. And I took electronics or electrical circuits, and oh my gosh, that was very tough. We got into AC current, and I'm just like, this is probably my limit here. So I was kind of glad in retrospect I didn't become an electrical. My dad's an electrical engineer, so I was like, thinking, oh, I've got his DNA, I've got his brain, I'll figure it out just like he did. No way.
Nah, I just get electrocuted on the first day so I can get out of class. That would be my plan.
Oh, it was. I admire all of them. In hindsight, I wish I had done mechanical, because I was a petroleum major, so that kind of like. It has a lot of overlap with mechanical and some structural, or not structural, but civil engineering. But obviously, it's very narrow in that sense. Obviously, only applies to one particular field. And I kind of wish I'd gone back and just done mechanical, because then I could have really taken that anywhere, and I wouldn't have been so sensitive to market conditions. I mean, we didn't talk about this, but when I graduated at the time, oil prices were, super low, which is great for everybody except for us, right? Except for producers, drillers, refineries. So they weren't really hiring much. I mean, I graduated, I was magna cum laude, so I was 3.8, I think, or something like that. I was probably 14th or 15th in the class. I was pretty high up there, but I didn't have any job offers. It was, and I had been sending my resume out prior to graduation, but once I graduated, I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to bother pursuing any of this anymore. I mean, at this point, the market conditions are so not ripe for drillers and surveyors and the like. So it really was also good timing there that the channel was kind of self-sustaining, and that it was providing me enough income to forego that field, because the field literally wasn't ready for a lot of us. Very difficult to get in at that time.
Well, if you think about it, when the market's right for petroleum, it's about $100 a barrel. Yeah. So the years you're talking about, it was probably in that 65, 70 range, which is tight, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's about 35. Yeah. It's like 35, 40 last year.
Yeah. It kept going down. I mean, they kept telling us in the department, and I love all my professors. They're all great guys, but I think they were probably a little too optimistic looking back about those prices. They're like, oh, don't worry. 6 months time, it'll be back up to $80 a barrel. $70-$80 is about when it starts getting right. But if it's below that, $50-$60, and we have, I think I have to go back and look at when I saw this article, but I believe we have a lot more in reserve now than we ever have before, because we at one point we're totally self-sustaining. Right. And I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it was, but it's not, it's not good for us in that sense, for the one field that I kind of put all my eggs into. The timing was just off. When I first got in, it was great. Everyone was coming out making 6 figures, 20K, 30K signing bonuses. Job placement was 99%, virtually 100%, unless you goofed off major in school and, weren't appealing. But that very quickly changed while I was a student there. Right.
All of a sudden you're like, wait, petroleum would come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I don't know if that had anything to do with just, wanting to do extra things in the summer, start the channel again. I never really thought it would turn into anything major, but I wanted to find something else to kind of use as a fallback just in case. I remember I was working at Winn-Dixie. I was a meat market, seafood market associate, and that was kind of like my summer job in between semesters. I'd come back home and do that. The guys there were great. They always took me on. Pay was awful, but I take what I can get. Right. And I remember contemplating at some point before I started the channel, I'm like, man, I was like, if I don't get out of here with a job, I could just end up working here. Maybe I work my way up to a manager or something, like with an engineering degree. I mean, that's not where I really saw myself. Not that there's anything against working in a grocery store. It's just that wasn't my plan. That wasn't where I saw myself in 10 years. And YouTube just kind of came up out of nowhere. It's
thank goodness.
Yeah, no, I'm frankly kind of surprised that it's still doing as well as it is. I thought this would be a temporary thing. I've kind of tried to diversify my income more so beyond just the YouTube scene lately, because I am in the back of my head thinking about that day when YouTube decides, you know what, we're purging all channels, we're shutting down, we're closing the doors, we don't want to keep this up, or we're selling this platform to some other company that's going to totally screw it up, because that's never happened before, right? So I still have all my eggs in a few baskets, and a lot of them kind of overlap with YouTube. So it's trying to diversify outside of that. You know, I was getting into real estate right before house prices went to the moon. So now that's kind of stalled, and I'm just trying to think of what else I can do right now. I'm never happy with where I am. I always want to be moving to something else, getting, branching out. I think that's one of my strengths and my weaknesses. I'm never.
You could teach other people to be an internet sensation.
Honestly, if I thought it was a repeatable thing, I would do it. I just, especially now with how many people are trying to do the same things we are. I got in it it was probably the last period when it was ripe for growth, because maybe a year after I got into it, after I think a year, I had maybe, I don't know, it must have been somewhere around 100,000 subs if I went back. It grew pretty quick in the beginning, but if I had waited another year, I don't think I'd be half my size now. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It's that difficult now to stand out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So describe a typical day in your life. Are you making videos every day? Do you produce once a week? How does that work?
I am generally very boring. I mean, if you put a camera on me for the day, you would see that I am not an exciting person at all. I try to convey a lot of enthusiasm and energy on camera, but my day is much like any other, in the sense that, I spend the morning with my kid where I can, eat cereal, whatever I have for breakfast. I'll come up and start working a little bit. I'll just film some things, write some scripts. It kind of depends on the day. I'll have some days where it's just editing, because I still do pretty much everything by myself. And that's, I take pride in that, but I also kind of hate it, because it's it's a ton of work. But the one good thing, tangible thing I can get out of it is that I don't have to necessarily share that income with anyone. I don't have employees. I'd like to have employees at some point. I'd like to be big enough to where I can, but I know that whenever I make a deal with said company, ultimately that money goes to me. It doesn't have to be split up. I don't have any other controlling interests, anything like that. So that's kind of, I guess, what motivates me underneath. But it's filming with the camera, going outside, cleaning systems, troubleshooting, all very, very boring stuff. But I try to make it look as exciting as I can on video. It's sometimes it's very difficult to do.
What advice would you give to the younger you, knowing what you know now about the YouTube channel and how it's all grown? How would you have directed yourself differently?
I wish I had started to diversify quicker earlier on and not waited to where I felt more comfortable financially to start doing it. I wish I had made those hard decisions earlier on about not necessarily foregoing income, but moving income elsewhere, not just putting it in a bank account and letting it sit there. I wish I had done more with it, invested with it elsewhere. As for YouTube specifically, I wish I had branched out and tried new things earlier. It's easy to get into a cycle where it's like, I expect X amount of views for this video. Okay, yeah, it did okay, but there's nothing really crazy about it. And just to keep doing that, you want to have that video every now and then. It's just far exceed your expectations performance-wise. And you only really get that when you change things up. Nobody likes seeing the same thing over and over. And I'm kind of falling into that same routine now, excuse me, where it's like, I'm cleaning these viewer systems. Now I've got cool music in the background, doing time lapses, seeing the before and after. It's a satisfying process, but it's the same thing over and over. Sure, the builds are different. The dust and the dirt and the grime and the bugs are all different in every build. But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. So I'm at this moment struggling to try to figure out a way to change that up a bit to make it more exciting for the viewer. But that's a constant process. It never stops with content creators. It can't. Very few can get away with doing the exact same thing over and over and getting the same results. I mean, conditions are always changing. Viewer expectations are always changing. What's ripe in the market, what's not, the keywords that are hot right now. There's a lot to keep up with, and And that's why it's so important to try those things earlier, because if you don't, someone else will. There's plenty of other folks out there who are going to be willing to do it, and then they'll be at the forefront of whatever that new type of content is, when it could have been me. So I'm trying harder to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, but I wish I had done that more often in the past.
I think we all do, right? I mean, isn't that the point of when we look backwards and think how we could have done it better? It's about learning and growing from the things that got you here. All right. I like to wrap up with the lightning round. So these are a series of lightning round questions. First thing that pops into your head.
Okay.
Favorite place on earth?
Oh, Tahiti.
Oh, nice. Movie you can't turn off?
I like Avengers Infinity War. I mean, I could watch that movie 50 times.
Well, okay, so back to Tahiti, and I know I'm off track now, but actual Tahiti or the Tahiti from S.H.I.E.L.D. that's not really Tahiti? I mean, is it actual Tahiti? Come on.
I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Tahiti for my honeymoon with my wife Lisa, and I want to take her back there at some point. She fell in love with that place, and I wish we had been able to stay longer. That's awesome. Beautiful chain of islands, golly.
Okay, I vote yes. Make that your vacation list.
The real Tahiti.
The real Tahiti, yes.
Right.
Not the S.H.I.E.L.D. version. Favorite TV show to binge watch?
Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Favorite book?
I like the Lord of the Rings books. I do. I mean, any of them.
Okay, that's good. Favorite podcast?
I'm going to, the typical... I don't know if I should say this because we're on your podcast right now. But
No, not counting this one. Not counting this one.
I do have. I like Joe Rogan. I mean, that's like the easy one to say, but I just like hearing somebody voice an opinion and he just doesn't care what other people think. True. It's refreshing. Not that I agree with everything he says, but you know what? Just hearing somebody have a platform that's big enough to just kind of say whatever you want. Right. It's nice to hear. I
got to tell you though, you say the typical answer. I probably asked this question 100 times. You're the third person to say that.
Oh, really? Wow.
No, it is shocking how there is no typical answer. So I love that you, bring it on.
Right.
Favorite car?
Porsche Carrera GT.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's a good one. Favorite festival?
I mean, I went to school and I kind of got to say Mardi Gras. That was pretty fun.
I would agree. But any Lafayette festival would have been an appropriate answer. So that's a good choice.
Yeah, the local ones. Yep.
Your pettiest pet peeve?
Even when people chew with their mouth closed, that sound just drives me nuts. And it drives my wife nuts. That drives me nuts. And I wish I could just turn it off. But I think it's just some psychological thing. It's a little off up there. And I can't help but point it out. I can't. I'm like, and I'll give her that look. She's like, "Are you kidding me? My mouth is closed." I'm like, I can still hear it. I'm so bad about that.
Oh, good. Michael and I can never eat with the two of you because he's the same way.
I don't know what it is. I'm like, if there was some kind of prescription I could take that would get rid of that, it drives me nuts just as much as I'm sure it drives her nuts.
Music up louder. Just turn the music up louder.
That's what we do. It's because she doesn't want the TV on at dinner, so it's got to be music. So that's exactly what we do.
Absolutely. Favorite musician?
My favorite band is Breaking Benjamin. I'm a big kind of classic rock, new rock fan. I can dig it.
Nice. If you were going to perform karaoke, what song would you sing? Can be from that band or a different one.
Oh gosh, this one's tough. It'd probably be a Journey song.
Power ballads. Always a classic.
Separate Ways. That's what.
Excellent. Good choice.
That's a good one.
Favorite sport to watch or play?
I have recently been getting into. I don't play this sport because it's pretty much impossible, but I love watching Formula One. That is I've been getting into that heavy lately. I got a racing simulator. I'm always doing the same races at the same tracks every week that they are in real life.
Nice.
And oh my gosh, it drives my wife insane that I'm such a binge watcher of Formula. I'll turn it on at at 6 a.m, 10 p.m. for lunch. She's just like, "Are you serious? More Formula One?" I'm like, "Baby, I can't help it. It's just we're meant for each other. I can't." Not trying to make her jealous or anything, but there's just some sort of connection that we have that I I can't ignore it.
That's a safe second love. So I think it's okay.
Right. Cars. Yeah. Cars in general.
Yes.
That's my biggest hobby. I think is probably cars, and then music's a very close second. Yeah.
That's awesome. Favorite meal or food to eat?
Spaghetti. I could probably do spaghetti every day. And my wife's Italian, so that has its perks. Let me tell you, wasn't planned that way, but it did end up working out that way.
Hey, I married an Italian, and he also cooks. So I think you and I are both very wise.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do. Favorite leisure activity?
Ooh,
I'm guessing it's that racing simulator, but you can give a different answer.
That is one. I don't want to be as nerdy as that though. I've played guitar my whole life since I was 4 or 5 years old. My dad forced me to play it first, but I quickly grew to love it, and I've been playing guitar ever since. So whenever I'm feeling anxious or feeling a little, cloudy in the head, maybe I just can't come up with certain ideas for videos or whatever, just play some guitar, and in 30 minutes I'm back to tip-top mental shape.
I think that's great. Best concert you've ever been to?
Ooh, best one I've ever been to. I saw this might, only some people are gonna get this. So my favorite band is Breaking Benjamin. They're heavy rock band, not screamo or anything. I was never really into like the screaming death metal, whatever they call it. But I love rock music. I went to a concert with 3 Days Grace, the original singer. 3 Days Grace, Adam Gontier was there. So I got to hear them kind of like when they were whole. Not that I have anything against the new singer, but still, OG 3 Days Grace for the win. Right. And then Breaking Benjamin was there. OG Breaking Benjamin, the original band that made the first 4 really good albums. And then Flyleaf was also there. Female singer, still a rock band, just a beautiful combination. She opened up. And then Breaking Benjamin came out second, and 3 Days Grace ended such a good concert. Went there with one of my best friends from high school, and my dad was there as well. That was awesome.
Sounds just like when I went to Lilith Fair. I'm just kidding.
I'm sure that the atmosphere was very similar.
Same, exactly the same. Favorite way to treat yourself?
Oh, I buy a bunch of stupid stuff. It's really bad. Like I keep saying that it drives the wife crazy, but like I don't want her to be painted in a negative light. She is such a good person, but there are so many things. Stuck it out,
so she must be delightful. She hasn't left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not yet. Anyway, hope I can keep her around. But I have done just like crazy impulse purchases where like maybe I'll do something really well one week. Maybe we have a lot of money coming in from sponsors, whatever. A few videos do really well, and there's extra income.
Sure,
should totally save that, right? I mean, that's the best financial advice you give somebody: either save it or safely invest it. Don't go into debt with depreciating assets. So don't buy car parts, don't buy cars, don't buy more car parts. Stuff that just has no, resale value is very low. So
is that aforementioned Porsche in your driveway? The Porsche we just talked about, favorite car? Is that sitting outside?
Oh no. So my wife has a Porsche little Macan S, just a little sporty crossover SUV, whatever. I do have a 911. So I'm a big fan of Porsche in general. So I have one of those. And I also have it's my guilty pleasure. I do have a Ferrari. It's an old Ferrari. It's not a very new, nothing crazy. I paid well under $100,000 for it, but it was, and I'm still in debt, by the way. Still haven't paid it off yet. I'm decided to keep the money in the account. It's better to be liquid and kind of play with safe debt. Usually with cars, once you tack on interest, you're not paying too much more than the value of the car.
Sure.
So that was the rationale there, but I do have that as well. And cars. That's what I was saying. It's just my guilty pleasure. I did fairly well in the stock market around March of last year, and I just decided, you know what, I want to buy a cool sports car. My wife's Italian; she'll have to approve of an old Ferrari, right? Come on. Well, that took a ton of convincing. I don't know if I still don't know if she's fully convinced yet, but I love cars. I wish I had $1 billion to spend on cars because I would buy as much as I could. I love it.
That is awesome. I do too. I have simpler tastes. I have a Tesla, but I do love them.
Oh, there you go. Is it a Model 3? That's the
X.
X. Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. Have you had any issues with that car? Anything?
No, it's been 2 years.
They are very, apart from maybe like some,
I changed the tire
issues or things.
I've done 2 things. I changed the tire and I added windshield wiper fluid.
Wow.
That 2 years.
I mean, the good thing is you don't have any, there's no engine, there's no transmission. I don't think there's any of that. So you're you just got motors and batteries.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that tech is definitely I definitely see, the electric car becoming the staple. But I'm gonna hold on to my petrol head cars for as long as I can.
As you should. Enjoy that.
They will be endangered species at some point.
Exactly. Greg, thank you. This has been an awesome hour. I have enjoyed thoroughly our conversation. I appreciate you making the time for us today. And I love hearing about how you built your channel and all that you've done since you left UL. This is just awesome. Yeah, no, Jackie, thanks for a great platform to talk about this kind of stuff with you. And thanks for the great questions. And hopefully viewers can, take something away from this. Always innovate, even when you don't feel like you have to. That's probably the one thing, if I had to sum it all up, that's the most important thing. Innovate all the time, and you'll either be with the pace or ahead of the pace, and that's always a good thing. So that is great wisdom and words to live by. Thanks everybody for listening and watching and being a part of it, and be sure to come back for our next episode of Razor Branding Podcast.
When the day is through.